This is the Metalhead Evolution Podcast with your hosts, Mike Sinopoli, Sean Hinnigan, Brad Nolan, and Rob Ruff, thrashing out the past, present, and future of the rock and metal world. Are you ready? It's time to follow the evolution.
This is the Metalhead Evolution. I am Rob Ruff, and I'm joined here today by my fellow metal maniacs, Mike Sinopoli, Brad Nolan, and Sean Hennigan. It's the 4th of July, and we are exploding with excitement. Speaking of exploding, we're going to take no hesitation and not wait 1 second to get right into the podcast here. We got a lot to cover to discuss our favorite PYRO and why PYRO is important to us, why it matters, what it does for us. So I'll start off, guys, if you don't mind, and kick this off here. The best PYRO experience ever for myself was Metallica, Pour Touring Me Load era, 1990s. They literally took the last verse out of a song to kill it in the middle of a song to make the whole stage collapse on itself. PYRO going off, a guy running around on fire on the stage. I literally had no idea. I was like 14. I'm like, my brother-in-law, do we got to leave here? Like, do we got a fucking situation? Like, what's going on?
It's funny because no matter what, we knew you were going to say Metallica. That's what like it didn't matter what what you said is great, and that show was cool. But no matter what they ever did, we knew you were going to say Metallica.
Absolutely. There's plenty of other bands that I love too that do PYRO. There's nothing better than like pairing that music with that explode. Like, and when you know it's coming too, like just like. Oh,
now I don't think James Hetfield has the same love for PYRO in Metallica that you do, based on his incident in Montreal, right?
Correct. Yeah, he did get injured, being in the wrong place, the wrong place at the right time, I guess.
So that was one of those things where he did not know the PYRO was coming, because you said that's your favorite thing is you're ready for it. He was not ready.
He was not ready for it.
He was not ready. Not on that day. He was not. So he played through it though.
Not the whole way. Axel didn't. That's for sure.
Axel definitely. No pun intended.
Well, I'm sure
on fire.
Seeing Metallica in different ways, they've always got their PYRO up and going. But we got to have this band come up in this conversation, and that's Rammstein. I don't think anybody puts on a show like Rammstein. At least not that I've seen. I've seen them live once. It blew my mind. It was amazing.
Have all you guys seen them? Has everybody here seen them?
No. They were my first concert ever, Rockstock 98. I mean, it was mind-blowing experience. And
did they have it at that? They had their own PYRO and shit at Rockstock?
Oh, yeah. That was a Sensa tour. First album, one of their not first album, but like one of their biggest albums, I guess you could say. I mean, they've been nonstop with it. And even in Villa Park, when they played the Odeum, they even had some type of PYRO at that show, too.
Was that with Soulfly?
Yes.
I would regret that show. I missed that. I was supposed to go, and I just didn't go for whatever reason, and I was fucking pissed off. But I finally got to see Rammstein, Chicago Open Air, 2016. Now I believe it's called SeatGeek Stadium or whatever they're calling it these days, out in Bridgeview, Illinois. And you know what? What a closing act that was. Night number one. Amazing. Legit. And they use 265 gallons of fuel per night. Give me fuel. Give me fire. Give me that which I desire.
It's crazy too, because they actually have a floor seating area that's called the fire zone, the Fleur zone. I mean, they literally expect you to feel the heat while you're in the crowd. You literally can feel your skin melting.
Oh, that
the
sounds
front
great.
Section of the floor costs like so much extra money because they want you to have that like in your face experience of basically fire all over you. Basically,
they want you to burn.
And Brad, that stage you're talking about, I read this the other day when I was looking some things up. The stage itself for Rammstein cost over $6 million and takes 4 days to assemble. Is what I read. It's for certain shows that they put on.
I have many nights fell into a trap on YouTube after eating a little candy, and you fall on YouTube watching the stage set them, like the time lapse where they set up the stage for the Rammstein shows.
Yeah.
Man, that shit that they put in, and it is great because you see it. I mean, it gets dark, it gets light again. Here come more fucking cranes. It's crazy. It's wild.
Exactly. And you know what, guys, what I was thinking about when we were doing this with this 4th of July episode here, what kind of gets overlooked for fireworks in general and metal and music, and even EDM does great fireworks. A lot of different genres do it, but we don't talk about when you go to a firework display, no matter what it is, whether you go tonight or whatever, but the music that accompanies that's fucking makes the show. And it doesn't get talked about enough, whether it's just your local firework display or it's a show you're going to see. The music itself, the way it's coordinated with the music, that adds so much to the experience, and it just will blow your mind, and it just adds so much. A couple other bands for me, then I'm gonna sign off that part. Kiss, Parkway Drive, and Lamb of God. When I saw Lamb of God the last time, they played Walk With Me in Hell, and the entire stage looked like it was on fire. I thought it was, but I digress. What about you?
Slayer too. No.
Slayer, yes, you're right.
Slayer's a good one.
That final couple years of runs of shows, man. Wow.
Yeah, Pantera's in the same boat too. The Reinventing the Steel tour, fire everywhere. It was, similar. I think Slayer's fire was used more wisely. Right behind Kerry King, you just see flames shooting up behind him, and it was a little. I wouldn't say it was minimalistic because it was definitely there, but like the way that they had it set up on the stage, kind of equal to the drum risers all the time. It was always just done perfect.
Sometimes it can be overkill, like you're saying. How some of the minimalistic stuff is cool, like Rammstein, like talking about how amazing that shit is, but then some of it is the guy's got like a fire bow and arrow he's spinning around. It's like, what are we? All right, we get it. You know what I mean? Like, we understand. Cool. Having said that, I haven't seen them. It's just those
it's these Europeans band, Parkway Drive, Rammstein. I mean,
I like small bands doing a little bit of. We saw Ghost Inside at Riot Fest a couple years ago, and they have just like small bursts every now and then. The front, like they'll have the 4 or 5 pillars on the front of the stage, and just fire shoots up, comes
cryo,
back down, but it's nice. Yeah.
Good.
And they got to be careful with that stuff because, as we're talking about bands out in Europe, I don't know. Do you guys remember this conversation? We were kind of talking about this the other day. It kind of sparked a memory that I had. And I don't know if you guys remember a band called Goodbye to Gravity. I'm sure you probably don't know that name, but if you look them up, they were in Bucharest and they had a show, indoor small club, and they tried to do pyro inside. And they burned the fucker down, and 4 of the 5 band members croaked from that. They 64 deaths inside. That's
who was the band here? Wasn't there a band
Great White?
Here?
It was Great White. It was in 2004 in Connecticut when that happened.
I forgot about that one. Yeah, but there was that one. That was that one, and then the one out in overseas was something. But
what was the numbers on the Great White one? How big was that? Do we know? Like, was that bigger than the 64?
It was a small club, but one of the band members passed away. A couple of the crew guys passed away, and that actually ignited, pun intended, in a bad way, I guess. But it ignited a lot more people being more wary of fire code violations and stage designers, not approving certain fire inside for concerts. Then they got way more picky and way more. You had to go through more hoops to be able to add that to your show.
Yeah,
100 people. Exactly, 100 people died at that Great White thing.
It was a bigger tragedy than the other one out in Bucharest. That's crazy.
It says it ignited an acoustic foam in the walls and ceilings surrounding the stage, and within 6 minutes, the entire building was engulfed in flames.
That's fucked up. That's
6 minutes. Crazy. 6 minutes.
I don't understand. I'll tell you guys straight up. I don't understand the power of fire. I don't get it. Like, I feel like no matter what happens, I can just, it's on fire. I'm going to walk out. It's fine. And then the smoke inhalation is fucked up. Like, I don't think I understand the true magnitude of being in a small place with a lot of people with fire. So fuck that, man.
I'm with you, dude. I'm definitely.
There's the reason we have fire codes now. Like, it used to be a huge deal back.
That could be a depressing episode. That could be a depressing episode for us to do those show tragedies. That we just had one over here with some high winds, with the roof blew off out in Belvedere, Illinois. Yeah, we did. There was only one fatality, but still, one is too many, as we know. But
one of you were supposed to go, right? Or you're friends with somebody who had a friend who went.
I think Rob was supposed to go.
I was going to go, and for whatever reason, I decided not to. Luckily,
Morbid Angel was the headliner.
Yeah,
that, right.
Yeah.
But and Brad, you were mentioning bands like Rammstein that were, got big here in the U.S., but they're from overseas. But do you guys, that sparked an idea between us all, who are some bands? You guys know of anybody, I don't know, from overseas that just couldn't seem to make it in the U.S. or that you think should be bigger?
Yeah, little guy's favorite band, that Blind Channel. So Blind Channel, they're here and they play a place in Joliet, this Forge. And Brad, you were there. How many people were there? For real?
Yeah, I mean, well, they weren't headlining. From Ashes to New was headlining, but I mean, there was only like 4 or 5 of us in the front who actually knew who they were, which is kind of funny.
Know they weren't.
I mean, yeah,
they're not headlining. It's not their show, but the fact that they were there, and then when they play in overseas, that Jesus.
Yeah, it's Finland. You know, when they go to Finland, they play arenas that hold 5 to 10,000 people and sell it out. You know, I know Mike has a lot of bands similar to that he's a fan of that, you know, they play super small venues here, but you know, they play so big venues in Europe.
No, absolutely. You hit that on the head, man. A few off the top of my head are Nightwish, Amaranth, and Within Temptation. Nightwish being from Finland, Amaranth from Sweden, Within Temptations from Netherlands. The thing with these bands is they're symphonic metal for the most part. Amaranth, a little more pop electro metal. The reason I think this type of music doesn't get over here in the US as much as it does in Europe, I think that this music is too soft for the metalheads, but too heavy for the mainstream pop crew. So they kind of get this, and they also don't get any marketing or notoriety here just because they're not from here. So I think that these types of bands, those would be 3 that I think. I've been to a Nightwish show. I've seen all of them live, and I couldn't believe it because Nightwish is one of the biggest bands that plays out in the Scandinavian countries in Europe. They have huge arena shows, but they play.
I was going to say, give us an example. Like, so if they're over there, they're playing a place like
Allstate Arena. They're playing Allstate Arena. UIC.
The Allstate Arena, for those who don't know, 12,000 people, right? 15,000 people for Allstate.
Right. Easily. And then here they're going to play something like the Concord Music Hall where I saw them, or the Rave. They played the Rave in Milwaukee. These are 5,000 top, not even. Aragon. I saw them at the Aragon, and the Aragon holds 5,000 people, and it was not sold out. So I saw them at the Aragon, I saw them at Concord, and I saw them in Milwaukee, and each one is about the same size venue. Concord being even smaller. So,
Concord is smaller, yeah.
So I'm just saying that some of these bands, and this band Amaranth came in, they played at a bar. They played at Home Bar in Arlington Heights. I saw them twice.
And now that Home Bar holds 200 people, 300 people. I saw a band called Cold War Kids there. I think it's like maybe a 300 person venue.
Yeah, maybe a 300, and the tickets were still available at the door. So it
should have been at the Cobra Lounge where we're going to see Knock Blues. You want to talk about 300 person venue? Too excited. So you're here, you're playing a venue with 200 people, 300 people. You're not selling out. You're overseas. You're playing 12,000 people.
Yeah, like I always wondered, like, what is the appeal? Why would they even bother coming back here? Like, you got to
try, right?
I guess, but how often can you try? Nightwish has been around, believe it or not, since 1996. And like, how many trips can you take? It can't even be financially profitable, in my opinion, to be taking all your shit overseas. You got the visas and all that stuff. And even when I saw Amaranth, they have 3 singers in the band. One of the singers wasn't even there. They had to have someone sub in for him because he had some visa issues and shit. So it's like, so some other guys up there. I'm like, what the fuck is this? But anyways, I just don't understand. I guess they want to just keep pushing the American culture here. I don't know what they want to do. They want to get their name out there. They do these small venues. It's like, wow.
Have you guys ever heard of Eurovision?
I feel like I have, but I'll need an explanation.
Okay.
So I've heard of it only because of the movie. That's the only reason I know what it is.
Yeah, yes, there is a movie about it. It's actually really funny. If you do have it,
I think
it's on Netflix. It's actually a really good watch if you do watch it. But Eurovision's a big contest throughout Europe. Each country has one band artist, performer kind of represent their country. It's like the version of American Idol, maybe in a way. Maybe World's Got Talent, basically. So a band from Italy, Måneskin, actually won a few years ago. They're actually a really good idea of a band that's come from Europe that's actually grown massively here, kind of out of nowhere. They covered Beggin'. They covered a single and it blew up all over radio. They played Lollapalooza, they played the Aragon, and now they're playing the Allstate Arena later this year in September. So Blind Channel actually came in 6th place the year Måneskin won. So that is one way that a lot of these maybe European bands are getting some, I guess, a little more eyes on them. But one other thing too is like maybe some of these record labels could push these bands a little harder, or if they just don't see the money, I guess maybe there's no solution there. If they're not going to think that there's any financial gain of pushing them here, that might be, a deeper issue here.
So if they've been around for so long, like Mike said, if they've been around for so long, do you think maybe they gave a little bit of a push at the start and maybe it didn't take off and then they just say, fuck it, they are what they are?
I think it kind of goes through
pushing
waves.
it now.
I mean, it goes through waves. Like I could even put this into perspective. Limp Bizkit, right? Limp Bizkit kind of fell off the radar. They were kind of a joke in America for a while, right? Then they go over to Europe and they go to Russia. They go all over Europe, and then they play all state arenas nonstop for 3-4 months for years. For 4 or 5 years, they played the U.S. maybe one time in that like half decade, maybe more, and they were just in Europe banking, playing all the European stadiums and selling them out every night. So I think it goes in waves.
Do you think it's a cultural thing in some fashion? Do you think it's literally us, like it's Americans? Like, do you feel like that maybe the Europeans and maybe South Americans and such, they have more appreciation for certain things where we're maybe a little more arrogant, maybe a little more spoiled, maybe we're all a little more just kind of like entitled to our like shit that we get? I'm speaking for us as a country as a whole. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if that was a thing. It always seems like even like the crowd reactions, like when I would see a video of like Iron Maiden and the crowd is just jumping. They're not even on their phones. They're into it. The reaction is just giving me chills while I'm watching it. And I'm like, oh, of course it's Santiago, Chile. It's not Los Angeles.
And then when it's here, you see they go crazy for one song. It'll be the big hit. They wait, like the whole crowd waits all night, chills out. You know, that's why, you know, you'll love to see shows now where the crowd is super into it and getting in. I'd rather see a band play a smaller venue with a bunch of people who are fucking into it, as opposed to play a place like a basketball arena where half the crowd is just there to say they were there.
Absolutely.
You got to think too, though. Like Santiago, Chile, how many bands are coming through there? You know, we're in the U.S. We get a little spoiled where we get everybody and anybody we ever want to see.
Yeah, it's case in
and
point,
it's just like
we get excessive.
So when you get it in Santiago, Chile, you're in it, and it's like we're going to enjoy this, right?
That's a solid point. I think you made a great point there. I don't know how often they go through those countries, if very often at all, really, because I've seen a few videos that they just like Iron Maiden playing Fear of the Dark. I believe that one was in Chile, and then there was one in Rio de Janeiro of AC/DC, and again, just the reaction to this. It might have been the first time AC/DC ever went there. I don't even know. But the way it was is just insane.
Yeah, I mean, it makes perfect sense. It's crazy to think about. And like maybe that's why these bands are bigger over there, is they spend more time over there. They're just there and say, hey, you know, we're just going to push our product here. Crowd loves us. We'll hop over, you know, give the fans something once every few years or whatever, just because we do have fans there.
Sure. And there's always going to be that, you know, how the hell did this band get this fucking reaction here? How the hell did that band get it? So, you know, we've been talking about bands that we thought were a little overrated at times, I think. And, you know, we come from the new metal generation, right? That's where we started our evolution through our metal, and most of us, I believe. At least that was the heart of it when we were teens. So we always touch on the new metal a little bit here. In our first episode, we sort of talked about, after, you know, Brad had given his rundown of Sick New World, it got us thinking a little bit about bands that we thought should have been, you know, bigger, that should have done more, that could have done more. And now we're going to kind of reverse that a little bit. We're going to go to the new metal, and we were talking like who got too big and wasn't deserving of that spot, in our opinion. So, you know, I don't know. You know, Brad, you're a new metal connoisseur. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because everyone's view of this is going to be so different. It's going to be, you know, you're taking it back 20 years to, you know, your experiences with these bands to maybe what they are now, which is kind of where I'm at with both of the bands that I choose. Now, some people might not include these bands as new metal, but when you start in this scene as new metal, I think you're kind of clumped into that group forever, in my opinion, and a lot of other people's opinions as well. The first band is System of a Down. Now, I love System of a Down. Don't get me wrong. They have some incredible albums. They put out some great music. The problem is they haven't put out an album since in 18 years now? It's 2005 was the last album they put out. And you could tell, I mean, they were at Sick New World and they played, you know, open air festival. We all went to that. And I mean, it sucks because these guys I don't think that I don't think they even talk to each other off stage anymore. I just don't think that they have that it factor anymore. And I feel like they're just taking the paycheck now. And it's a shame because they just have so much potential.
Here's a question for you, though. You're saying they haven't put out an album since 2005. Would you rather a band like that stays like a legacy act almost and just plays kind of greatest hit shows at this point? Or would you rather have them pump out new music that might be shit? Like if a band like that, they might be like, hey, look, we're good. Like we put out some fucking bangers. Well, let's just stop right now and keep playing off that, as opposed to why deal with putting out new shit unless we think it's going to be great. Which would you rather?
Well, the problem with them is that they don't even play that many shows a year. I think that's kind of what people are so drawn to them now. They play like 2 shows a year, 3 shows a year in the US, and that's it. So I don't really see at that point. I mean, you're a legacy act, but you're not really active at the same time.
Well, that sort of kind of ties in what Rob was saying before, because like he was saying in those other countries where the bands maybe don't come around so often, maybe that's why they feel overrated to you. And I kind of agree with you that System of a Down, that they haven't been around so much that when they do come, everyone gets really excited and they go and see them. Like I remember being really excited when we went to go see them at Chicago Open Air. And I did want to ask you, and if I didn't ask you in the last episode when you were talking about them, did you see any difference? Do you remember any difference when you saw System of a Down at Chicago Open Air in 2019 versus Sick New World in 2023? Was it the same stage presence?
I actually wasn't impressed with their set in 2018. They kind of just stood around and didn't really move. I didn't like that. That's not the old System of a Down that I remember from back in the day. I mean, Chavo is still pretty active on stage, but at Sick New World, they actually put on a better performance. They played some rough cuts. They actually, Serge looked like he was really into it. And with Serge nowadays, it's really hit or miss from his live performances. Some nights he'll get him and he just is checked out, but at Sick New World, he actually like put in the work that night.
That's good to hear, man. It's good to hear.
It was his annual show.
Yeah, for real. And another band actually at Sick New World is another one that I have is one of my other overrated bands, and that's Incubus. Incubus kind of went a different direction than I think we all kind of imagined that they would. Fungus Among Us and Science especially was just a new metal, just brilliant new metal album. And then they just, it really was. It was, I mean, those shows during that era from when they put out that album, Brandon just had so much energy on stage, and I feel like he just lost it and then just decided to go to a radio rock route. And
they used his voice. He took over that voice and he realized it was being wasted probably on stuff that we loved with Science. You know what I mean? Like he's singing, but there was a lot more screaming a little bit then. And he says, you know what, if we could sing this whole damn thing, I still liked them afterwards. I was still a fan, but you definitely saw the crowd change, because I think we all saw them. Incubus to me is dreadlocks and post dreadlocks. That's Incubus. Is like they were a different band when Brandon had the dreadlocks. He cut them off. Now they're singing. There's a lot more females at the show. You got a lot more radio presence. A lot more of that.
Yeah, Dirk Lance, the old members, it was just a different vibe with, the band back then. And hey, it is what it is. I just, Brandon just tries to hate on the new metal scene too now. He deflects and say how much he hates the Science album. And then they're at Sick New World and you're kind of bringing back nostalgia, and you don't even play one song. You don't even play Vitamin. You play nothing off of Science for this show. Wow. It really made me mad, and I kind of dozed off a little bit during their set because I was just checked out.
We also was it because you were checked out, or because of the video you sent us about how many drinks you might have had that day? Is that part of why you might have passed out, you think?
A little bit from column A and a little bit from column B on that one.
Too many hard seltzers for you. That's what we know. Rob, you say something?
I was just gonna say Incubus is a band that I've loved for a long time. The first time I saw them was when they opened for Pantera and Black Sabbath, to give you an idea of how far they've departed from their original sound. And I even Make Yourself is a great album. Morning View, I will say, that's the start of their departure, but I still didn't mind it at the time. But everything thereafter, I was pissed about, honestly. Like it was a total deviation from what they were and how they started. And as a fan, it really aggravated me. And I've seen them multiple times in arenas and small clubs. Yeah, I'd agree with you there that as far as new metal specifically too, but just even as a trajectory, they've just now I feel like they're mailing it in some respects.
Makes sense. And not to take another diversion though, but I just maybe think, what do you guys think, like, as far as lineup changes go in bands, kind of what you were talking about, how they got split up, it got different. How far does it have to go before you almost start taking the band not as serious? I don't know. Does that ever happen to you guys? A band that I could just off the top of my head that I love is Megadeth. And I just know they've had a revolving door every which way. Not to bring them up in here, but did you guys have like a point where you think like, okay, there's been so many members, or is it too many key members have taken off that you just don't take them as serious, and maybe you start to see them as overrated?
When does it not become that band?
What was that, guys? It was
Slipknot's heading that way. I feel like
Slipknot can still get away with it because they're all masked and shit, but I don't know.
That's what they wanted, right? I mean, that's what Clown has said, is he wants it. It's a band of interchanging members, and I think that's a band that goes until Corey goes. I think that's kind of the vibe I get, unless you're setting up for Vendetta to take over, but I don't know.
That sounds like Ghost to me.
Mushroomhead's the same though. They've had a revolving door of singers going in and out, band members. The drummer kind of calls a shot in Mushroomhead, so he's kind of the one that's running that, and similar, unfortunately.
Yeah, I've never understood that fucking band. Are they new metal? Can I put them as one of mine? Can I say?
Hey, absolutely. They're definitely new metal. Yeah. They're 100% new metal.
Fuck them then.
But do you just dislike them, or are they actually overrated?
I think they're overrated. I don't think people.
Mushroomhead ain't playing All-State Arena.
I don't think they're overrated. They're right where they should be.
They were the inspiration for Slipknot, right?
I would say Guar would probably be an inspiration for Slipknot more than Mushroomhead. But if you want to make a Mushroomhead fan mad, yeah, definitely say that.
Mushroomhead fans get pissed off because they think that look at the Slipknot ripoffs. That's what they think, even though Mushroomhead was out there first. But anyways, we're getting off on a tangent. I'll get back on track here with my two most overrated new metal bands, and one of them is Stained, because Aaron Lewis is a whiny little man when he sings at times. I did like the Dysfunction album. I did like that. I grew up liking it. I still do like that album. When we talk overrated, doesn't mean we don't like these bands. Kind of like Brad was saying with System of a Down. It doesn't mean he thinks they're a little overrated for his reasons, but he doesn't dislike them. Same thing with me with Stained. I don't dislike them. At times I can't take his voice. I don't think they should be as big as they are. Another one for me, big one here, is the Deftones. Now,
fuck off.
I knew you were going to shit on me.
This is crazy.
Is Kevin Churchill listening to this? Because I know he's a big fan of them too, right?
He will probably be listening to it and be ready to kill you.
I know. Well, if Kevin is listening, I love the guy, and I'm not trying to do that. I do like some songs. I did make sure I listed the 4 songs that I like from the Deftones, which is, of course, My Own Summer, Swerve City, 7 Words, and Diamond Eyes. I do like those songs.
That's it. It starts and stops with those 4. That's it. You're the worst.
Everything else sounds like Chino went up to a bunch of guys and said, "Hey guys, I want to start a new metal band, but I want to sound like a very sad and angry, depressed teenage girl throughout the whole thing. You just play music around me whining about shit." That's kind of what it sounds like. And look, I don't hate Chino at all. The guy actually blew me a kiss at a concert. He didn't blow me. He blew me a kiss at a concert. It was really nice. I blew him a kiss back. It was a nice little exchange. I respect the band, but I think they're just a little overrated. That's all. Sorry if I got a little loud on that, but look, I don't hate the Deftones either. I hate neither. I don't hate either band. But I
can say there's bands that I really don't like, at least not anymore, that I used to, that are on my list. So for me, a big one is Disturbed. Down with the Sickness.
I love Disturbed.
I know you do.
Everyone. I love Disturbed. I think they're great. I think Draymond's got a fantastic voice.
It's unique.
And I respect Raymond. Everything that Disturbed has done for metal music and in the mainstream, but they're just not for me anymore. I did like Down with the Sickness. That album's iconic in a way for me, but I don't know. I'm over it. And I feel like every album sounds so similar and so much the same. And then with Papa Roach, I feel like, the first album was awesome, and then it just went downhill from there into the land of pop. So
would you guys say that both of Rob's bands that he listed peaked with their first album?
I don't think Disturbed did.
Well, that was technically Papa Roach's first albm. Papa Roach had like 3 or 4 albums. They were more. I mean, obviously, Infest was the first big album on DreamWorks, so I guess you can consider that. But they were definitely a little more punk in their very first albums, like their independent releases. So they've definitely evolved in many different directions. But I mean, we could talk about a million factors about bands evolving the right and the wrong ways.
I guess, how do you determine what's the true first album? Or those, if they were independent records, like that means Mate, Feed, Kill, Repeat is Slipknot's first album. Do we consider that?
Sure, that's fair.
Is that kind of how it goes? Well, that's what I was thinking. I don't know. That was just something that I thought of those two bands if they did. But Disturbed, I don't think so. I think they evolved enough to go. But
one note about Disturbed, because they're from Chicago, and we got to give respect to them from being from Chicago. And back in the day, anytime we went to any of those shows at the House of Blues, the Metro, any of those shows outside of that venue or at the bottom of the House of Blues staircase, David Draymond was handing out CD samplers, stickers, and busting his ass
everything. Every show, every signing of bands that we went and met, he was out there too.
I don't care if you hate Disturbed, but man, that dude worked his butt off to get to where they are. So you know what? Yeah. Mad respect to you, Dave Draymond, and the rest of those guys. You worked your ass off for where you're at.
Absolutely. We say it all the time, like off the podcast, like respect to all of these fucking bands. Even if we're shitting on you, you have the last laugh. If you hear this and you hear us for some reason, we don't like your music that you put out, you're fucking doing it. We're talking about it. So God bless you. Like, we respect the shit out of it.
And for everyone that hates you, there's another one that loves you,
maybe 3 or 4.
And it's just not, you're not that person, right? It's not for you. It's for someone else.
With a lot of these bands, I think there's more love for them than hate. I think for every hater, there's at least 10 that love him. And Draymond, I give him even more respect. He's a huge advocate on suicide prevention as well. And I know he's been very vocal about that, which is pretty cool. So,
yeah, I mean, that's good. That's my 2. I'm going to go with the 2 that I went with. One is going to make Brad upset. Well, they probably both make Brad upset. I'm going to say Mudvayne as my first one. I think
awful.
I think after LD50, it was downhill after that, basically. To me, I like their first 2 albums, LD50 and The End of All Things to Come. Those 2 are pretty good. But then after that, it was like they were just coasting to me. I like them. I do. I like Mudvayne. I wouldn't pay a lot of money to see them now. But the nostalgia part of it is cool. So, but yeah, I definitely think they're way bigger than they should be. And
name 5 albums better, new metal albums better than LD50. Go. You can't, because none. It is a top 5 historical band. Mudvayne will forever live on in new metal history for so many different things.
So it's exactly what we said then. It was their first one, right?
That doesn't mean they're overrated. That was ahead of its time. When they showed up to the VMAs in white covered in blood, I mean, Mudvayne has historically made a mark in new metal history regardless. If someone's overrated, that means that they haven't done enough to maintain their status, in my opinion. And I feel that Mudvayne, especially with the TikTok kids coming out with Berber Dang, that brought Mudvayne back to the spotlight. That could have even actually brought Mudvayne back to realize that they could make more money and tour again by, all the commercial, people talking about them and making TikTok videos and weird stuff. So for a band, even something so similar to that, to be able to come back, I think that they might have had a little bit bigger legs to stand on. I'll fight to the death about Mudvayne on that one.
Yeah, you make a good point, Brad and Sean. I think both of you. I just don't see them as the headliner at a festival or something. I think
that's what I'm saying.
Maybe second to the headliner. I could see a Mudvayne, maybe third to the headliner. Even
put Mudvayne on at 6 o'clock, not 8 o'clock.
They don't have to be a headliner to be overrated. That doesn't necessarily make someone overrated that they have to headline.
No, but they
Disturbed.
They are a headliner, and I'm saying I don't think they belong there.
Hey, Brad,
they are headliners at these fests, and they don't belong there.
Hey, Brad, question: LD50 or Hybrid Theory?
LD50 for me.
How about you, Sean?
Hybrid Theory.
Rob?
LD50.
I'm going to be with Team Sean on that one in Hybrid Theory.
I think, and both of those are unbelievable albums, but Hybrid Theory is like 30 minutes of perfection. Like, it's just solid in and out, and it's just perfect. It's a great album.
So you can't listen to LD50 from front to back?
I can. Yeah, I just said it's a good album. It's just not Hybrid Theory. That's all.
It's not where every song is iconic in a way, I guess.
This is true. Way different vocally, way different.
Sure, it's very
very different.
Ryan Martini, like you have so many different factors in there. DJ versus no DJ.
True. What about you, Sean? You got another one?
Yeah, my other one, I will say Limp Bizkit. Now this is a big yeah, we're about to argue again. I think Limp Bizkit to me, Limp Bizkit, again, another one of these bands where their best album is their first one. And if the two of you guys were with me at that show at the Metro earlier last year, I believe, was it last year?
2 years ago?
2 years ago. And if you don't think that their best album was their first album, tell me what songs you were hoping to hear. The songs you wanted to hear were off that first fucking album. You want to hear Counterfeit. You don't want to hear Nookie. You know what I mean?
Hey.
Limp Bizkit became a clown show. And having said that, I like them. I'm a fan. And I just said I was at that show with you. I like them. But they became a clown show. It became the Fred Durst show. They did everything. And they just blew the fuck up with Nookie and became almost like a cartoon act almost.
I mean, I'm not going to disagree with that in a sense of like, you know, the way that they blew up was kind of different compared to other bands in the genre. But at the same time, too, I mean, I will agree with this. I think Fred Durst is overrated.
He's the worst part in that band.
But I don't think Limp Bizkit themselves, like Wes Borland, is the best part of Limp Bizkit. Hands down. I mean, fucking down. In a way, I would agree with Fred Durst being overrated because he.
And when you think of Limp Bizkit, what do you think about? I think of
everything, you know, and you know what's funny because you think $3 Bill Y'all is their best album, right? How many people would completely say, you know what, Significant Other is their best album, Chocolate Starfish and Hot Dog Flavored Water is their best album. So you know what,
they could talk about that on their podcast.
Hey, they can headline arenas and people are going to pay for it right now. They could literally go to the Allstate Arena now, and I think at this point. They could fill Allstate Arena before I don't know, name a band that we think could fill a big venue bigger than Lamb of God. I'll throw Lamb of God at the Allstate Arena or Limp Bizkit at the Allstate Arena. Who would fill more?
I think Limp Bizkit by far.
But Limp Bizkit came full circle, right? You know, Limp Bizkit came full circle, and now, you know, people are back into loving their music and stuff. I would agree Fred Durst, but I can't agree with Limp Bizkit in its entirety and about, you know, $3 Bill Y'all, because I mean, there's some good songs on those other albums too.
I think Fred Durst, like you said, his persona made people hate Limp Bizkit a lot more than they probably deserved. And I think that's
Woodstock,
why
99.
I loved him for that. I loved him for that shit.
That's a lot of people didn't.
I know.
Yeah, but that was the media portraying him the wrong way. I mean, if anyone blame the Red Hot Chili Peppers for playing Fire, if you want to really blame someone, you're going to blame Limp Bizkit for jumping on a piece of wood, like Fred jumping on a piece of wood and making people, you know, he went through the motions of what he does every night.
I watched one of those documentaries. Yeah, and I watched one of those documentaries, and they said flat out, like, you're mad at Limp Bizkit for putting on a Limp Bizkit show. Like, what the fuck? Exactly. You can't get mad at the band for doing what they do.
I mean, blame your own security. Korn started that whole thing up, I believe, right? Weren't they up earlier?
They were the first night and had that place fucking popping.
That was crazy.
What was the name of that one that just came out, I think, last year on Netflix? That documentary on Woodstock? What the heck was it called?
Yeah,
Woodstock 99 documentary?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, there was one on Netflix and one on Hulu, I think. There's one on both.
Yeah, that didn't look like a very good idea, what they did there. And man, I was supposed to go to that, and my parents pulled the plug on that one. And
I remember wanting to go to that. So
after watching that documentary, I was like, you know what? My parents were probably right to not send me to that show.
Blame whose ever idea it was to hand out lanterns on fire to the crowd, and then have Red Hot Chili Peppers play Fire, you know, after a long weekend of hell for these attendees. So, you know, you can blame Fred all you want as a scapegoat, but I don't know. I mean, maybe because he was dating Paris Hilton, singing at the VMAs with Christina Aguilera. I mean, of course, you know, there's so much to, you know, taunt Fred about, but he's an icon. He's a new metal icon and legend to me forever. True. So to me, forever, I can't pin them in that category. But if you were to say Fred Durst himself's a little overrated, yeah, as a vocalist and an MC, of course, out of all these new metal vocalists and everything like that, I would say Fred Durst is probably the most overrated of all of them.
And I think what you said was a huge factor of it, because Fred Durst did kind of transition himself, like like dating Paris Hilton, to the mainstream. And I feel like with the metal community, a lot of us, I don't care, but a lot of people in it, they do kind of get a little resentful towards those guys when they go and sell out a little bit over there. Right. But, you know, like I said, like we were talking about, like with seeing them at Woodstock, that would have been amazing. Like Woodstock is probably a dream festival for most people, which I know you and I, Brad, we were having a conversation about like, okay, what was the ultimate, right? So what were you talking about?
Yeah. So, like if there would be something, what would you attend? If you could name a festival, if you could, name a show of something would you attend this festival? The festival that I came up with would be Family Values 2024. Now the bands would be Korn, Deftones, Cold Chamber, Limp Bizkit, Edema, and Taproot at the Allstate Arena. Would you go?
I believe I would have to. I would most certainly.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously I would go to that 100%. Yeah.
Yep. I'll even make it even harder here. $150 floor tickets with today's prices. Would you go?
I feel like that's a bargain or pretty like on pace. I'd absolutely still yes.
Rob,
I think I paid $100 to see the Deftones the last time by themselves. Like I would certainly go.
How much y'all paying to see Tool?
No, man.
You can even
Brad,
get tickets. I think Mike, you're it's your show, man.
When we were talking about, so I get really, when you tell me dream festivals, I have an imagination, and we kind of talked about this could be anything. Brad's kind of came up with one that could be realistic. It can happen next year if it really got together. For me, mine's an impossibility to really happen, but my dream festival, and it's more of just a show, to be honest with you, it would take place at the Gorge Amphitheater. And that's in Quincy, Washington. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that venue before. It was actually
beautiful. Beautiful.
They just had a shooting there, unfortunately, recently. But fuck that. But anyways, it looks better than Red Rocks, in my opinion. I've been to Red Rocks. I haven't seen a show, but I've toured the area. But I would see a Led Zeppelin headliner with special guests, The Doors, and a band called Coven. This is old school rock, metal, kind of the beginning. Stuff I could never imagine myself seeing in that scenario, with a whole bunch of weed and just laying there with that view, hearing Robert Plant, Jim Morrison, and this other obscure band that I'm talking about here, Coven. It would just be the coolest little thing. I know maybe you guys don't know that last band, but that's
they're like the fathers. They created metal in my opinion.
They created metal. And ironically, Coven they got a female singer. They started up in like 1967, and their first track of their album was called Black Sabbath, and their bass player or the guitar player's name is Oz Osbourne, and this was all before Black Sabbath was a thing. It's crazy. And they're kind of out there as the first metal band. That first album they put out was just satanic, and just I put it on by a bonfire and just sitting outside in the dark, and it's just creepy and weird. But
it's the original Ghost. It's the original Ghost.
It's like 100%. they're like a satanic. They're almost like a satanic Jefferson Airplane.
Yeah,
that's kind of what they sound like.
Exactly.
It's like, great Jefferson Airplane, and you throw in a bunch of Satan. That's what this is.
So anyways, they're from Chicago.
They're also from Chicago. That's true. That is true.
Heavy metal created in Chicago.
Hey, we got a lot of Chicago stuff going on here. So that would be my dream kind of show. I really went just imaginative there. So, Rob.
Yeah, this imaginative thing is I'd have to go like all over the board, because there's artists that I would want to see. Robert Johnson would be one if it was like a fantasy, like Robert Johnson. And Mike, you said it for me too, Led Zeppelin. Like there's a couple artists that I've never seen. Jimi Hendrix is one of those. And for me, the Rolling Stones in their prime, in like the 1970s, mid 70s Stones, give me that, and I'm blown away. And there's not even a metal in there, believe it or not. But these are all precursor metal artists, bands. These are bands and artists that laid the groundwork. Robert Johnson, I might even say, might be the first guy to write a heavy metal song down at the Crossroads. And just like the mentality of it. And it's not literally metal, but it's more like the attitude and the blues progression. That's the basis of rock and metal. So that's what my dream festival would be. What about you, Sean?
Mine, I went the same kind of thinking as Mike, to where I kind of went with every like genre kind of like for the last 50 years and put like my favorite band from up there. So I've got Sleep Token, because they're like one of my favorites now. Every Time I Die. Then you go Slipknot, Korn, the Ramones, and Led Zeppelin. So
I go to that.
Yeah.
I go to the bathroom during Sleep Token, but
that's fine. Sure. That's fine. We don't want you there. Don't come to worship. That's our time. Okay. Yeah, though, that's the route I went. I would pay whatever fucking amount I had to pay. I just kind of picked, my favorite bands in each era and just went with it.
Got me thinking of a lot of other things. You know what I would always have liked to have seen, and I don't know if you guys are Van Halen fans at all. I'm probably going to guess not, but I would have always liked to see, and it'll never happen obviously now, but a David Lee Roth and Sammy Hagar fronted tour, or at least just a show with both of them doing everything that they've done.
I thought they did do that.
Didn't they try that? And
I don't believe that ever happened.
They couldn't do it. I swear
thought they tried
it,
and they had like different dressing rooms and shit, and it was like a thing. And I think they had after like a couple shows, they're like, "This sucks." Like we're not.
You got to add Gary Sharon in there too.
Now Gary Sharon, but I would like to see that. Would have something that I would have liked to have seen. And then, like you'd said, time traveling to when they were in their prime. If I could see the Doors at the Whiskey, what's that place, Whiskey Go Go or whatever, in LA, that would have been something to go back and see for sure.
That to me was the crowning achievement of our band when I was in a band called Champions. And we played the Double Door, and we're backstage at the Double Door, and there's like pictures of the Stones backstage at the Double Door from like recent, but still, it was like, holy shit. Like, I'm literally playing on the same fucking stage as the Rolling Stones once played. Pretty awesome. That to me was like the crowning achievement of our band at that time.
Hey, the last time I was in LA, Robbie Krieger was playing at the Whiskey A Go Go. I stood outside while they were playing. I tried to get in, but sold out.
So they did. Sammy Hagar and David Lee Roth did tour in 2002 together. It was a 21-day tour, and they did 19 shows of that. I guess Sammy Hagar got sick the last two, and those got canceled. But afterwards, they said that they would never do it again. And then Hagar went back. Hagar went back with Van Halen.
Yeah, I did see that in 2004. I saw Van Halen again for the second time with Hagar, and it was much better than the first time with Gary Sharon. But yeah, that would have been something cool to see. I'm glad it actually happened. I didn't even recall that, believe it or not. Good to know. So,
well, Mike, what do we got on board? What are we reviewing? What are we listening to this week?
Well, typically what we do is we kind of go in a rotation between the four of us and select an album. But we got a listener involved here, and we will do this. And if you have a suggestion, just like our friend Matt Saban gave us, you can send it into the show however you want to do it. Any of us will hear it, and we'll do it for you. And he picked an album for us to go ahead and go off of. And what we're going to do here today is Veil of Maya, the album Mother. They just released May 12th of this year. So they're from Chicago. They started up in 2004. They kind of cross over a lot of genres. They're metalcore, deathcore, electrocore, all kinds of different things that they have in there. Synth something or other. They kind of touch a little bit of everything. So that's who we've got. So, Sean, why don't you get started on this one for us? And I want to hear what you have to say about this.
Yeah, man. So I listened to it. I will be honest. I was never a huge Veil of Maya guy. I didn't listen to them a lot, but this album I kind of dug. I was kind of into. It took me to, speaking of nu metal, took me to a little bit of Spineshank vibes. I was really into it. It took me a couple listens, actually, because the first listen, I was kind of overwhelmed. I was like, what the fuck is going on? This is a lot. Checked it out a couple more times, though, and I'm pretty into it. We'll probably dive further in. Favorite song on the album is called Synthwave Vegan. I was into it. I liked it a lot. I'm going to give it a 7.6. Also, reminding myself once again, I fucked In Flames. But yeah, 7.6 on this.
You just gave this album a higher score than you gave in our first show. One of the best albums we've ever heard in recent years.
Yeah, I fucked up. I'm why? Can I go back? Can we? We can't. Can I?
But you can own it every show, every episode. You can own that.
You know what I can do? I can go through and edit the file, and you can re-record yourself and your score, and I can replace the file, and it'll like it's never happened before.
Just 3, 2, 1, 8.4.
But I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna go ahead and make you live with that, because I put it this way: like with my ratings, I don't know. We all have our own here. We all kind of put an aggregate together at the end. But if for me, if it doesn't get me after several listens wanting to go back, you know how you have those albums where you're sort of like, hey, this is so fucking good. I actually have to stop listening to this a little bit, or else I'm going to run this thing into the ground and start not liking it. That will never, if it doesn't give me those vibes, it's never going to get over a 7 for me. So for me, this album, I liked it. I thought it was very innovative. I thought they had a great range of vocals. Amazing blend of sound. I've never really listened to this band very much, so I'm glad I got to hear something new. Will I listen to this album again? Most likely, yes, here and there, but it didn't give me anything too memorable. I was waiting for a lot more beat drops, a lot more just energy and aggression and just something to click. And it just kind of whooped around a little bit weirdly for me, but it was very cool, very innovative. The album cover, by the way, if you take a look at the album cover of this thing, it's fucking cool looking.
Super cool. Yeah, I was
really
into that.
like the album cover. It's a freaking gorgeous thing to look at. It's so cool. For me, my favorite 2 tracks were Red Fur and Disco Kill Party. So those were my 2. And I'm going to give this album because I thought it was good. I'd listen again. It doesn't have me wanting to go back very much, but I will touch it again. But 6.3 out of 10 is my score.
That's a tough one on that one. Listening through it, I definitely heard a little spine shank, like Sean kind of said on that. The vocals, the death metal vocals, are just too much for me. I just can't handle that. It's just it's a little overpowering for my taste. But an Artificial Dose and Red Fur, like the mix of the clean singing and the screams were great. I enjoyed that a lot. I don't know. I like the Degenti sound of it all. That sound is really, really grown on me a lot with them and like Periphery and all that. So I don't know. I give it a 7.8 out of 10. Maybe an album I would listen to a couple songs off of, but not one I probably would listen to, in its entirety on a regular basis.
See, for me, I listened to Veil of Maya for the first, actually not that long ago. I think it was only maybe 6 months ago that I first listened for the first time. Album called False Idol. I highly recommend you guys listen to that because that's pretty much a straight metalcore album. And I mean, I was working out to it. I was like, what is this? This is solid. So when I heard this was a bit of a left turn for me for this band, which at first I didn't like. I felt it was a little frenetic, a little all over the place. There was a little, like you said, a little bit of everything. It went from metalcore to deathcore to a lot of, like, if you listen to it, it's on a journey, but it's just like, I feel like it's just a bunch of left turns, and it felt disconnected to me in a way. So like listening to the album as a whole, I didn't feel like had a solid flow to it. And
I actually agree with you on that, where you could feel like I'll only pinpoint certain songs on this for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So I felt like there were certain points where I really liked it and I really enjoyed it. I actually really liked the first track, Tokyo Chainsaw. Reconnect is another one. Disco Kill Party. There's quite a few tracks on there I actually really liked. It took me a little bit to kind of warm up to it a little bit because it's not really what I was expecting. But I gave it 3 or 4 listens, and in the end, I do really like it. It does towards like the last 4 songs really kind of go down this more deathcore path. But I'll give it a 7.5 out of 10. And for me, that's a fairly low score for me, but again, only because of the history. But I would say my opinion of this album might change over time. But I feel like as a whole, like if I listen to the song in singles, it'd be a lot different than I listen to it as a whole. And so if I'm judging it as a whole, that's my score.
Well, so. And Rob, you don't have to really explain yourself that much after what Sean gave fucking In Flames. You really, doesn't matter what.
Yeah, anything goes.
Nothing will ever get worse than that.
No, you're just going to be In Flames.
I'm evolving.
And, some professional ratings on this one over at blabbermouth.net. They gave it a 7 out of 10. Distorted Sound gave it a 9 out of 10, a higher rating than all of us. And Wall of Sound gave it a 7 out of 10. So between all of us and what we've seen going around on the internet, it looks like this is a safe 7 out of 10. Good metal album. You might forget about it. You might not. Who knows? I mean, everyone's got a different opinion, as we know. So I did forget that we got some replies when we were talking about our dream concert. So that's on me. I forgot. And we took to Instagram. We took to our social media. And we asked them what their dream lineup would be, some of our listeners. And we got a couple replies here. Amy Farah, she came in and said she wants to see a complete show of 90s one-hit wonders, 20 different bands. So she didn't list any bands, but that's what she wants to see. So who comes up to, off the top of your head? A complete show of 90s one-hit wonders, 20 different bands. Is it Natalie Imbruglia? Who else is on there? OMC, how bizarre. Who else is going to be on that?
Chumbawamba.
Chumbawamba is going to be there. I don't know. I mean, if she wants to see one hit
wonder, about Eve 6,
Ace of Base.
They got more.
Ace of Base had 2.
They had more. They had
Ace of Base had a couple. Come on,
all
they
that
were
she
bangers.
wants, all that she wants. I saw the sign. I think they even have
Don't
another
turn
one.
around.
Isn't it? It's a Wonderful Life or something. Too?
What's the band? Hey,
Don't turn around.
You know a lot of Ace of Base. You see, we are a metal. We are a metal podcast. We are a metal podcast, but we do know our '90s dance music.
Fun fact: I used to get wasted at bars and go up to the DJ and yell at them to play Ace of Base.
Oh, you look like more of an Alice DJ type guy.
Big time.
But anyways, so that was one response. And our buddy Matt Saban, who's pretty much taken over the show here. It's
his show now.
Basically is his. He's got he just kind of went a different route. He went back in time to shows that actually happened or bands basically the year he wanted to see them. So what he has is Hendrix, Cream in 1969, Metallica in 1992, Pantera in 1994, Nine Inch Nails in 2000, and Nirvana in 1993. Those would be Matt Saban's dream
list.
shows. So
is he related to Nick Saban? I don't know.
We do appreciate.
He's not, but he was the guitar player in Not Down. How about that? His son becoming a Not Down show.
Most overrated new metal band ever.
There we go.
Only because you said Limp Bizkit.
So yeah, you know, we speaking of Matt Saban, he also gave us some singles to work from, and we picked one from a band we really like on the show. I think this is becoming one of our favorite bands as a collective unit on the show. I know 2 of you guys have already gotten to see them. 3 of us are going to go see these guys in September. That's Make Them Suffer, and the single that we chose just came out called "The Ghost of Me." Sean, you shit your pants and got a huge boner when you saw these guys, and even Brad said he could see the tent being pitched in your pants when you saw them live.
I had to move away. It was that big.
Brad, you don't have to don't humor us here. We know his never gets that big. So
big enough.
You know, well, whatever. It's
the Ninja Turtle came to play.
I'm sure it's cute. But anyways, Sean, I'm going to go to you again because you're the man with this stuff. With Make Them Suffer. Let's hear what you thought of their single "Ghost of Me." What did you think?
It literally took me 10 seconds to become a fan of this band, and I am all in. The Ghost of Me is no different. I think it's a great song that has you from the start. It's just chaos. You just feel like, banging your head. You feel like throwing shit, getting in the pit a little bit. And then you get the female vocals slide in, gets a little electronics in there. Fantastic song. This to me is probably the album I'm most looking forward to coming out very soon. Whenever that album's on the way, I cannot wait for it. So I am going to give this song an 8.8.
8.8. All right. Well, Brad, what did you think? How about you?
The Ghost of Me, when I had never heard this one before. I don't know if they played it live. I mean, when we were there, it might have been maybe too new at the time to saw them. But when the song kicks in, it literally sounded like a Spine Shank song off Height of Callousness. It really blew me. I was like, whoa, what is this? And about 126 into it, there was some really good clean singing, and the screaming mix was just absolutely excellent. I can't believe they've been around for 15 years, and it took us going to a Bad Omen show to actually understand that these guys existed, because we've been really missing out on this band. That's for damn sure.
Oh yeah.
And this song, this band, and this song in general can appeal to a metalcore crowd. It can appeal to a hardcore crowd. It just has a wavelength of genres that this is a perfect appeal to. About 250 in, when the other vocalist Alex starts in, it's just melodic and it's just beautiful vocals. I hope to hear more from her featured a little bit more on some of the other songs, because I think she's a great vocalist. I give this one just a solid 8.5 out of 10. It's a great song, and I want to see it live, even though I won't be with you guys, unfortunately.
Yeah, there'll always be another one, I'm sure. And it always gets me I always feel a little embarrassed when the band is this good and they've been around this long and I haven't heard of them. I have a little bit embarrassed, what is wrong with me? Where were they, and why did I not find them? Rob, what did you say?
Yeah, I'm in line with you guys. When I first listened to it, it's like a big punch in the face when you first start, which I love. And then I kind of cooled off a little bit, some clean singing with the male vocals, and then brought in the female vocals. It actually sounded kind of Spirit Box-esque for a slight bit. Maybe it's just because of the female vocals. This is probably one of my favorite bands with a keyboardist, I would say. And I loved it. I'm giving it a 9 out of 10.
Oh yeah.
Solid, man. You know what? I'm going to echo basically everything you guys said because I was just going to be repeating things. This is not quite as good as Doom Switch, which I think is an immaculate song. But I'm going to go ahead and give this one an 8.1. I absolutely loved it. It'll be in my rotation for quite some time. Cannot wait to see them. And I can't wait to hear what else they got coming and dig back even further into what they've done. So exciting. That's what I love about this podcast is that we can help ourselves learn new things, see new bands, hear new things. Like I wouldn't have listened to Veil of Maya if we weren't doing this thing. This was great. So, you know, that's the thing for the listeners and for ourselves. We all get to kind of share music and our thoughts, and I love it.
Send us everything. Let us listen to it. Send us everything, because if like this shit, we wouldn't, like you said, Mike, we didn't. I don't think all four of us, I don't think we've talked about bands forever, and I don't think any of us have really mentioned Veil of Maya. So yes, send us all the bands. Send us all this shit to listen to. We will listen to it. Even if we don't talk about it on the show, you send it, we're going to listen to it for sure.
And yes, we have heard of Alpha Wolf. They're got to track the album now, but it's all written. Down Under, baby.
Yeah, Australia metal taking over.
I love it. It's great.
You know, I think it's been a good conversation today, boys. As always, you know, I respect the three of you guys and your opinions. I think it's excellent. This has been a blast doing this. I know it's the 4th of July today, and we got to get to our barbecues and see our families and such. So, Rob, you know, do your thing, man, and let us know what we got coming. What do we got coming up?
We're coming back to you in a couple weeks in mid-July, and we'll give you another album review, single review, and a few other metal-related conversations around, you know, we just like to come up with different, unique questions and shoot the shit, so to speak, about our favorite thing. So with that, follow us on Instagram. Let's get involved online. We're active on social media. So on Instagram, we're at the Metalhead Evolution. On Facebook, at the Metalhead Evolution. Twitter, at Metalhead Evo, EVO. So hit us up, and we'll talk to you guys soon.